This episode is brought to you by Summer School Electronics. With pedals like the Snow Day Delay, the Pep Rally Fuzz, the Trash Panda, and my personal favorite, the Science Fair, which is two classic dirt pedals in one, with a mid-boosted overdrive on one side, a black lab rat circuit on the other, and a blend knob to blend between them to find the perfect classic stacked dirt sound you're looking for, it's hard not to find something you'll love. Mark builds all of his pedals by hand in Syracuse, New York, where he also works as a full-time educator. In addition to the super fun graphics on their pedals, Mark also offers custom artwork. Want your dog's face on a pedal? He can do it. Want your face on a pedal? He can make that happen too. Go over to summerschoolelectronics.com and make sure to tell him that 40 Watt Podcast sent you. This episode is brought to you by the supporters of 40 Watt Podcast over on Patreon. Go over to patreon.com/40wattpodcast, where for as little as $3 per month, you can help support the podcast and get every episode ad-free. For $5 a month, you'll get every episode ad-free, as well as a bonus episode every week. I can't overstate how thankful I am for the support of my patrons, and hope you'll consider joining the team and helping keep this show on the road. Forty Watters, welcome to a new episode, 40 Watt Podcast. I am your host, Philip. Once again, back with you. I am very excited to be back. It's been a couple of weeks. Thank you for your patience. Also, I especially need, before we get into this episode, to thank a few people who have been extremely patient, and that's my newest Patreon supporters. Now, all of my Patreon supporters, especially those of you that have been with me from the beginning, you know how much I appreciate you. You literally keep this show going. You make sure that the overhead doesn't actually cost me money, and that's really wonderful. I appreciate all of y'all. I used to read all of your names every episode, but the list got a little long. Just going to be honest. And I am not complaining. That's a stupid thing to complain about. But it also means I can't read everyone's name. But I am going to start thanking my newest Patreon supporters every episode when I have them. I won't have them every episode, and that's okay. So this episode, I want to thank Doug M., Clay W., and Paul Strutt for joining the Patreon team. I sure appreciate your support and helping make this show happen. You've been really patient because I forgot to read your names at the last episode. But yeah, if you also would like me to read your name, or if you just want to help keep the show going, either way, both maybe, you can go over to patreon.com/40wattpodcast, and for as little as $3 a month, you can support the show and keep it going. $5 a month, though, gets you extra content every episode with my guests and myself. It's a fun time. All the weird shit happens in the Patreon episodes. Usually. Sometimes weird stuff happens in the main episode, but it gets weirder in Patreon. That's all I'm saying. Having said that, I do have a couple of other sponsors that help keep this show going. This week, I want to thank my sponsor, Barry, over at Grez Guitars. Y'all know I've been talking about him all year. I am the biggest fan of what Barry is doing. I literally make sure to like and heart, whatever, all of his posts on social media, and you should too. Follow him over on Instagram, Facebook. I don't think Barry's on Threads yet, so hopefully he'll get over there on Threads, but I know he doesn't have a lot of time. Barry's making these amazing guitars out of reclaimed redwood in California. If you don't know, redwood is a protected species now. Unfortunately, in early America, when they were building California, they basically just cut all of them down that they could to build their bridges and buildings and all of their structures. Well, every time they take one of those old structures down, Barry does his best to claim that redwood that they're tearing down, and he uses it to build his guitar tops. And they are some of the most resonant guitars I've ever touched in my entire life. I have two of them. Actually, one of them isn't made out of the redwood, but that's fine. I have a Grez Folsom, and I have a Grez Mendocino baritone. Eventually, I'm going to need a standard Mendocino. But Barry and I are right now working on another project that I can't talk about yet, that I'm super excited about it. So be monitoring, following. It may take a while for that one to come to fruition. But yeah, I think you ought to go check out Grez Guitars. Place an order with him because Barry builds some of the most beautiful guitars. I'm partial to his single cuts. I think the single cuts that he makes are just some of the coolest, classiest guitars ever. So click the links below. I'm going to quit gushing on them. In the meantime, let's get into this main episode I am very happy. This has been an episode that's been a couple of months in the making. I've got Shane and Ryan from Aviate Audio talking about their pedal that is coming out literally as we record this episode. If I remember the day correctly, it's just in a few
Yeah, it'll
days as
be
we're recording.
Friday, June 21st.
Yeah. So as of the day this episode is launching, that pedal is available. It is called the Multiverse. But before we get into that and what it does, and Ryan and Shane try to make me understand how it works, because I am a guitar simpleton, first, let's find out about you guys. So,
Yeah, well, thank you for
welcome to the
having
show,
us on.
guys.
We're super excited to be here.
Thanks so much, Philip. I'm
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you all because we've been chatting for a while over in Discord, and finally getting it to
stoked.
happen.
Yeah, we
Sorry to
love
interrupt
talking
you.
about gear, so this is the perfect platform for that. Yeah, I'm Shane.
Yeah.
This is Ryan. We're from Aviate Audio. We founded the company together. Ryan and I met in college in Buffalo a while ago, and then started working on the idea and for Multiverse after college. But going way back for me, I grew up playing guitar, kind of a native with digital equipment. So when I was coming up as a player, that was sort of what was standard, like the now highly memed about Spider line 6 amps and the extreme mode. Like that was basically one of my like core memories of guitar gear. So I also like hard rock music and metal from that time. So those are some of the influences. But using digital gear and kind of growing up with the workflow that you get from like encoder knobs and little digital screens and some of the first iterations of what became really popular digital effects platforms. So that's sort of what like my gear choices and tools have been over the years, and a lot of the inspiration that we have or that I bring, from my personal experience. So that's sort of me as a player. I like to play hard rock music and more modern stuff. I've got my Ibanez guitar and also more like Strat style, super Strat style guitars is sort of what I like to play. I grew up in New York, but we met in Buffalo, and that's where the company's based. Buffalo, New York, yeah.
Okay. That was going to be my next
yeah,
question.
That's where we
So
are
you're
right
all in
now.
Buffalo now.
Since 2018.
Okay.
And yeah, we've located the company here and build our pedals here. And we have a team kind of in the Northeast, like U.S. area in Canada.
So before we get into Ryan's story, Shane, I have to ask, because this is as I'm meeting more and more players who are the digital natives. How old were you when you got your first tube amp?
It wasn't my first amp. My first amps were digital or like solid state, but my first tube amp is a good story too, because I was in high school, so it wasn't even that early. I've been playing for like a few years, and it was going to be my first real amp purchase.
Okay.
So I was able to get a half stack, but the choice is really interesting because it was a line 6 tube amp. So that was my first and only tube amp was the line 6 Spider valve, and it's really the only one. Like I've had a few like others, but that's the one that I've had the whole time. And it's a mixture of a Bogner designed tube amp with a digital effects section and their amp profiles as well. So you still have the extreme.
Yeah, I think I remember that because they're like a tube power section and a solid state front end, so you can do all the modeling. Is that right? Or did they have a pre?
So yeah, it's all tube preamp and power amp, and then just like some sort of digital amp modeling that would happen in there too. So like go on with the amp, and then also some of line 6 effects, and it had like its own floorboard that you would use to control with a Cat 5 cable. And yeah, that was my main tube amp experience. So it was like very preset based and very like you could go from a very extreme clean ambient tone to a chug tone, and it was really viable for a lot of different things genre wise. So I just loved it, and I still use it, and I think it kicks butt, even though it's kind of an odd amalgamation of different gear. But yeah, that's my tube amp, and Ryan has tube amps. I've tried his, and I love them, but I tend not to carry them around.
Yeah, no, that's entirely fair. I remember the Bogner partnership with the Alchemist and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Spider Valve, and I think maybe the Alchemist may have been the one I was thinking that has like one
I've
section
got it
is
right
tube and
here.
one
I
isn't.
don't know.
But I
It's
remember
probably
they
it's
did a few.
sideways, so you can't like see it in the shop. But this is my my studio, and it's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've definitely played my share of spiders. I've definitely they were
Yeah.
everywhere. They were so ubiquitous in
Yeah.
the
And
early
don't get me wrong,
2000s
I
that
didn't love the way that like the
everyone.
really small one sounded. I think it's mostly the speaker being made of paper, like low quality, or
I
mass
agreed.
produced, whatever. But I think the electronics had a lot of
Yeah.
beauty in them, and the tube amp version that was really made well, I think, sounded great. So yeah.
I've gone back, and I promise, Ryan, we're going to get to you, but this is our first tangent of the podcast. Um, I recently almost bought a couple of different old versions of the Line 6 Bean just because I had some Guitar Center credit. You know, if you buy something with a gear card, they love to give you credit off that thing. And then I was like, what am I going to do with $60 credit? Like, I don't need strings. I don't need. So I almost bought a used Line 6 Pod Bean because I was like, maybe I just didn't know what I was doing. Maybe they sounded great back then. We just didn't know how to use them. And then I listened to a bunch of videos and I was like, nope, they still sound like crap. They, I don't like them. No, the Valve one would be different. Actually, for listeners, for what it's worth, I spent that $60 on a Metal Zone. I think I did better.
Classy.
But yeah, I went through my share of those. Yeah, it's super classic, and I think it's actually a
The
great
Metal
pedal.
Zone
Some
is a
people think I'm
misunderstood
insane.
pedal.
I'm right. I brought it home. I bought it at the Guitar Center in Boston, actually, while I was up there of a few weeks ago, and I brought it home. I plugged it into a two rock, and because able to immediately dial in some of the closest, best Metallica tones I've ever been able to manage. Like 19-year-old Philip was super pumped. But neither here nor there. I've never played the Valve Line 6 amp, so if they're great, I'm taking your word for it. Those are great,
Well,
and
I
that'll
think
be
it's
my
been a new.
opinion from now on.
It's gone away, and now
Um,
we're in the world of like floorboard amp modelers and the bigger.
It's kind of a relic.
It's sort of a relic of an in between time. Yeah.
right. It's like it blows people's minds. Wait, it's a digital modeler situation.
I
but
never
it's a
saw
half
anything like it the
stack?
first time I saw it. I was
What?
like, what the heck is this thing? It's so big and it's crazy. Yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, no, I love the concept of we're gonna make something convenient, but we're gonna make it as inconvenient as possible. So neither here nor there. We'll move on, I promise. So Ryan, what's your origin story? How'd you get into guitar? How'd you get into this wild world of trying to make really elaborate
Yeah,
pedals? And we're gonna get to them.
my first instrument was like saxophone in high school, and I played all through high school. And I think around 10th grade, I had always dreamed about being in a band. Like that was like the coolest thing for me. And I was obsessed with like the Beatles, Beach Boys, like all the like 60s band, a lot of classic rock. And I think I just one day in the summer was like, I'm gonna go buy a guitar today. I was like 10th grade, and no one's gonna stop me. I'm gonna go on Craigslist. I'm gonna go and get a guitar and an amp. And I got an Epiphone Les Paul Special 2 and a solid state crate amp, and just taught myself on YouTube. Marty Shorts was my guidance, and that was how I learned how to play guitar, just through YouTube and through
No one's gonna stop me.
just sheer force of will.
And serious shout out to the crate amp. I've gone through a few of those in my day too. I've been through a lot of amps in a relatively actually no, it's a relatively long period of time now. It was
Shane and I
short
should
for
do
a
a
while,
crate and spider
But,
shootout video.
Oh my gosh, please do it. Please. I think though I think those are my favorite videos now at this point. Stop showing me useful stuff and show me ridiculous stuff. It's why I love Ryan over at 60 Cycle Hum. and is I don't even watch Ryan's demos anymore. I'm like, I don't care about you actually demoing gear. Give me your dumb ideas. Like, I am absolutely going to do a video where I play a custom shop Les Paul into a metal zone, into a two rock, just because I can, because it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The idea of using a metal zone in that rig. Just because, give me the ludicrous. So, uh, so how did that translate into? At what point did you start going? I
Yeah,
want to make
I think,
gear.
and just Shane and
You were
I,
trading and
yeah, I was always just I
gear all
got
the
obsessed
time.
with gear. I'm the type of person that gets on a topic or something that I'm really interested in, and I just zero in on that, and that's like my life, and I go fully down the rabbit hole, and just obsess over it, and that's just been my life trajectory. But I have not gotten off of guitar stuff and guitar gear, and that's been the one that's stuck for since then. So
That's been a constant.
yeah, very into guitar gear.
Well, he was always constantly cycling through gear, like trying new things, and I sort of had like the same few axes forever, the ones that I wore down and loved and would never get rid of, and I just had my few. I kept my circle close.
Yeah.
And Ryan was, on the other hand, really active with like trying out different stuff.
Yeah, and
Playing the field.
Yeah, and
totally
Shane and I met in college, so we initially just bonded over both being musicians, both living in the same initial dorm, and we hosted open mic nights together at the dorm for everyone. Like, we manned the PA system, and Shane always got
that's awesome.
Shane always had the like the same gear, and then I was always just coming up with new stuff all the time. So
I need to know the trick of being a college student and always having new gear come through, because when I was in college, it was definitely pretty much the same gear, not by choice. I was just broke. So I'm curious, when you're in college, what did both of you study?
We both studied electrical engineering. So yeah, we were tinkering with electronics, like with guitars, some pedals and stuff too.
Naturally, the next step was, how does this work? I want to know how this music is working.
Breaking stuff open, and we'd have ideas for like gear or what to get or what to do or stuff to make, and I would kind of bounce them off Ryan, and he would always sort of be like the voice of reason about, well, that seems really dumb and impractical, or like, yeah, but why, and stuff like that. And I would just. I kind of brought some of my influence with digital stuff and thought about what's the most that I would want to, like, that you could do with a pedal that uses a chip. So we sort of had this idea and tried stuff together, and that's how we sort of, and we built some weird stuff because it didn't necessarily think it was going to be a pedal even. Like, we went through different, even form factors. Like, we had some really gadgety looking stuff, and one that was like a low profile pick guard, where it was basically a circuit board and all the stuff was on that.
It was like a smart pick guard.
Yeah, so we had and that was a project that we did and worked on together. So that was sort of where we came up with trying stuff and kind of working together. That was like the origin of getting into this, since that's the topic of this question. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you needed Ryan to be your Ian Malcolm to say, stop being so worried with whether or not you can.
Shane always had that out of the box ideas that were like, all right, we can work with this, but we gotta tweak some things to make it happen.
I get that weird twinkle in my eye. I'm like, oh, what if? But then Ryan's like, oh no. So, but ultimately, we have a really crazy concept for a pedal, but now it's not like it's not like a different thing. It's a pedal, and we made it as familiar as possible to a normal pedal, because that's not what's different about it. The fact that it has stop switches and knobs, we want that to be familiar and
not scary.
Yeah,
you don't want to look at it and be like, oh, this is scary.
So it's a guitar pedal, and that's
it's the dual switch, standard dual configuration. So
let's go into that a little bit. Let's talk about the Multiverse that is launched today as of this episode airing. It is available. Links below, y'all. All the links are down below to the website and Instagram and all the things. But y'all sent me a bunch of videos to check out, to see what it does, and I got a little short on time, listeners. When I tell you I'm busy, I do mean it. But I got to watch a little bit, and I still sort of give I and the listeners, what does it do? What are you doing here? And then we'll just they've seen the picture. I probably used the picture as the Instagram post for this. Maybe, I don't know, because I haven't made it yet, y'all. That may not be it at all. But there are pictures. It's available. You're seeing it places. It's a pedal format, so it can go on a board, like you said, switches, knobs, buttons.
It's a multi-effects
What does
pedal.
it do?
So yeah, it's your multi-effects pedal. It runs presets. It's got stereo input, stereo output. And then it's got assignable controls. So that's the 4 assignable knobs that are encoders. They're also press buttons, so they could be switches. You have the stomp switches, and then also MIDI and TRS input for more. So that's all your input, your controls. And it's your multi-effects pedal. You can kind of use it to cycle through your different sounds, and the sounds could be wildly different. Or,
it's not limited to a category.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, but yeah, it's very open as to what you can do with it. Yeah. But you can cycle through your different preset tools or tweak them using the controls, and run your effects.
But the key differentiator, that's really
is that going to be your question?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. So how is it different? And I know it is because we've talked about it, and I'm in your Discord, and I've seen y'all talking about it. Most of the conversation there goes over my head, but that's okay. The part I did get, it works a little different than other multi-effects you've seen out there.
What are the effects?
Yeah, so it's a collaborative platform. So it's a open development platform where a bunch of different brands or developers, from indie DIY people up to known brands, can collaborate on one single hardware platform. So it's really, the unique thing about it is really the technology inside of it and how it brings everything together, and not necessarily the hardware part that is more.
It's the ecosystem.
It's the delivery mechanism for the.
People can really have a lot of freedom, or they have all the developers and the creators that publish stuff on Multiverse. You got a ton of freedom. We put as much effort in crafting this pedal to make it as possible, to make it easy to develop for and make it shareable and open. So we provide tools to make your own effects. We're not saying anybody can make it. We have developers. That was the focus of our first year. So we launched it at NAMM 2023, and that was when we were visiting NAMM with the pedal in beta. Before that, recruiting developers. Then we launched the developer edition, which was for people to get on board as early adopters, make effects, start populating the library, which is on our website. And so we had a bunch of great effects. A lot of them are free, or they're all free effects that people just made. And there's a lot of that out there with people who just make DIY projects or have digital effect ideas that they put on a board, but then you never manufactured pedals out of it necessarily, or you're not a pedal company, or
right, because the manufacturing side of things can be difficult. And so effectively, y'all have created a hardware and hosting platform for other people to create effects that can just be integrated and make use of as much or as little of the platform as they want. Like maybe they create an effect that doesn't need the MIDI inputs or doesn't have stereo capability. That's okay. It's not there. Or like they can take full use of stereo in outs, MIDI control. They can be as wild as they want to be, but y'all are giving them the platform to put out these things
and share them with everyone else. That's the key, because a lot of stuff is like, if you make your own project, how are you going to get it out there and share it with people and see if they like it if you don't have a full company or way to distribute that. So there's you can and the other thing too is like, how do the effects play together too on one platform? Like, oh, I really like this company's reverb, this company's distortion. I can get them all on one platform and try them, make pedal boards. You can do kinds of crazy routing stuff in Designer. So that's kind of powerful. You can do like mixing, and I think you can get some really, like, one of the coolest things for me is the way you can do audio routing inside of it in stereo that you just physically can't do with a normal pedal board. So you can get really, really down the rabbit hole and really creative in there too. But if you want to just like connect three things together in a mono signal chain, go right through and just have three awesome effects, like that's really easy to do too. And that's probably mostly how I like daily use it.
So, and I feel like that's the next step, is to talk about, this isn't a typical, you have one, I'm going to call it piece of hardware, one pedal on your pedal board. That doesn't mean it's one effect at a time, because there's like a whole internal ecosystem that you can run multiple effects. Every patch can be a totally different setup as you cycle through. It's for that much power, it seems really pedal board friendly too.
Fairly compact. It's not like an overly committal size. It can go on a pedal board. It's a bigger pedal, but it's not a full floorboard modeler size.
Yeah. It's like the standard like dual pedal size.
And when Ryan's talking about like setting it up and making your boards, like that's in our software that comes with the pedal. So you just set it up, kind of
in the desktop editor.
And then you save it. You save it in the pedal with the USB cable, so it's for your laptop at home.
So once you set it, you're good to go.
So that's how you make your own sounds if you want. You work with your library of pedals that you've curated for Multiverse.
How tweakable are settings, say, on
So that's why we have the assignable controls. So the ones that you're going to want to use the most, you can have right there on those knobs. And then you can also menu dive and go to every single parameter of every effect that you have saved in the pedal. So you can access everything. It's more menu divey on the hardware when you're not just using the encoders. That's the easiest. Or you got your expression or MIDI too for more. But that's what the intended use case is for live, like a stock box configuration.
And then you got your 4 right there.
If you need to go back in and do your deep sound design, that's what the desktop designer is for.
So in a live setting, you would just have, what your most used controls are right on the hardware if you needed to dive. But we don't really want to have it's not a very menu divey pedal. Like if you're going to, like Shane said, like if you want to do deep stuff, the best way to do it is in the designer application.
Yeah. And I think more and more guitar players are turned off by menu diving less. That was a convoluted statement. Let me try to say that differently. I think guitar players aren't as scared of menus as they used to be. Now, I'm not scared of them. I do prefer not to use them, but I know that that's just me. I'm aware that I am a relic at this point. So many guitarists are used to menus at this point in their life, especially basically anyone 5 years younger than me and down. They're much more used to it.
And like for me, I've branched out to synth gear, and I've gotten really interested in that with like groove boxes and stuff. And some of the ones that have screens, they're insanely deep, and you're just doing all this workflow almost like to the level of a DAW with a little 1.5-inch OLED screen. So that is, and they provide a lot of like detail in their manual, but there's a learning curve to it. It's like learning a whole.
I'm on the opposite side. I am, straight. Most of my, I still run the tube amps. I have, all vintage guitars, but mostly modern pedals. And I never menu dive on this thing because I'm always like, I assign the controls to the hardware. I never go in the menu. If I need to make a new preset, I'll just use Designer. So we just felt like
right. You're not making a
it would take so much time to like menu dive and do that on the pedal. It's just so much easier to do it on the desktop. Like at least you have access to everything on the pedal. But if you're like you want to use the Designer as your main like preset builder.
You can't build a new pedal board right on the pedal screen. You can't do that. You can adjust every effect parameter. But in terms of like designing whole new signal chains, and all that stuff, we provide the free Designer software if that goes.
This podcast is supported in part by Stringjoy Strings. I'm a snob, at least that's what people tell me. I'm never okay with good enough, And that's where Stringjoy strings come in. They're better than good enough. They're the best. Stringjoy are making some of the finest strings available today right up the road from me in Nashville, Tennessee. They offer custom sets, balanced tension, coated strings, the works. If you need it, they can probably make it happen. You should be using Stringjoy strings, and if you're going to order from them, you really could help this podcast out by clicking the affiliate link down in the description or show notes below. You get amazing strings, I get a little bit of that back to help the show keep going. It's a win-win situation. Get your Stringjoy strings today. So, in your talks with people designing effects for the platform, what's been the response from the people you've approached? I'm sure you had a very wide breadth of what the hell are you doing to, oh, this is the perfect place for this idea I've had to try to do this.
We could tell them like things that haven't been like home runs per se, have been like, oh, I have great effects, but I'm not going to like port them in. Would you do that for me? And sometimes, we help.
Sure.
But ideally, we provide a toolkit that makes it easy, as easy as possible, and that the idea is that people publish their own stuff. So there's always been like developers are kind of like guitar players in some ways. Sometimes they're both. You're both like the left brain, right brain thing. Yeah, and so they have the capability and the skill, but it's like pushing a rock up a hill. Like, so you find the ones who really resonate with the concept and look at the pedal and think, I could really do a lot with that. Like I already have all these ideas that I could start putting in there. And those have been the times where, we have developers that put out multiple effects and keep going with it. And it becomes like a part of their workflow. So we provide like there's the hardware and all the tools, and then we provide support, and we have a development community on Discord. So yeah.
Some of the people who are most excited are like plug-in companies that don't have like a guitar player centric audience, and they want to have their plug-in on hardware, but they don't want to be, manufacturing pedals. So I think those people were really excited, and we got a lot of traction with them. Or like pedal companies that want to pilot an idea, or do like you were saying in the chat before of like having a way to get into a brand, like that's another really good application for this as well. So definitely like the people who see the vision and the concept for this open development where all the brands are on the one platform, they've really taken it and been like, oh, I can really use this. But I think now that we're at this stage where we're launching, like I think just getting the word out, like this is what we're doing, and I think a lot of people have had some really creative ideas, and there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline,
because it is sort of a development playground, and we're still building out more features to make it even more flexible for people. Like we just added the ability for developers to control the screen on the pedal and make the screen of the pedal do the stuff that they wanted to do. Same with the LEDs. But we had crazy ideas come out, like pedals that are modeled with AI, that were distortions, that were modeled, using all sorts of different, different methods.
Yeah, there's all different types of methods for modeling the digital effects, and it's kind of agnostic of whatever your normal workflow is. But we do have a AI modeled fuzz on the platform that was a physically built fuzz pedal that someone made, and then they trained a neural network to model this analog fuzz pedal that they just custom built, and it's on Multiverse.
That was Chow DSP. That was Chow DSP.
Yeah.
And which pedal was that?
The fuzz machine.
The fuzz machine. Yeah.
So I realize we're recording this a few days before it goes live, and so there's a few days for things to happen. But for the most part, I'd imagine a lot of things are set. At this point, how many effects are available in the community?
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it, community
35 right now.
Yeah, the platform.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to probably, unless there's a last minute entry that you all vet
it'll
and are
be
like,
35.
yes, this can go.
Yeah.
There's
other ones in the pipeline that'll come, after, but at launch, we'll have 35 effects.
That's awesome. So my next question, kind of building off of that and what you just said, I'm kind of curious. This is pure curiosity, listener. This is inside baseball. I'm really curious if y'all, in approaching companies, have you had any companies that sort of bounce back and were like, oh, we like this and want you to OEM supply so that they could brand it themselves and put their stuff on it? Like, because I could see where you'd approach a company that's, say, a software company, doesn't want to get into making hardware, and they're like, oh, here's a thing that could launch to guitar players these plugins we've been making. We want you to OEM make them for us. Did anybody try to subside you that way? You don't
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
name
I mean, people are
names, but
definitely interested in the hardware. It's definitely one of the things that comes up, especially when you're talking to, brands that sell a lot of products or more products, and they want to see it as a hardware platform. But one thing about it is that it's very collaborative. So those types of things are theoretically
yeah.
possible. But what we create it for is everybody's got ideas for effects, or a lot of people do, and this is a platform for you to bring them to life. So that's the starting place that we always approach from is, will you know, get a dev kit and make, see what you can make with it, and, get familiar with it. And then we can publish effects on our shop. Now there is the potential to also, Multiverse is just, in the Aviate audio part of it, is just making a clean platform for people to put their effects out. And
Right.
so we could potentially do limited, this is the player edition is our newest release of Multiverse. In our main stream edition, this is intended for every player. This isn't a developer tool. This is for everybody to get access to the effects that we've got. And
Yeah, and this has been a lot of years in development. It's not like you guys just dreamt this up earlier this year and are launching it. I mean, you're 5 years into this
we
at this
partnered
point.
with, and we have a really talented developer at Aviate Audio, for Steve, who also founded Blackadder Audio, and that goes back to our origin story,
Okay.
which we didn't touch on before. But he's from Ontario,
Yeah.
and extremely talented, more experienced engineer, and originally somewhat of a mentor. We purchased his hardware product that was a development tool,
Okay.
and ultimately ended up collaborating. We had this concept for the digital platform, and he had really great electronics that were so flexible. It's, for people who are familiar with that, there's like the Teensy audio, and it's kind of like Arduino, where some of the base, the core of the technology comes from, is from Teensy and ARM.
So general
ARM-based
purpose
CPU. ARM-based.
A lot of pedal companies use that kind of platform now.
It's becoming more popular too, because it's so lightweight and efficient, and it, in terms of like tone, it's super lightweight and efficient. So you can run it bare metal and have it go designed purposefully just for running an effect. That's what its intended purpose is when you program it, rather than having like an operating system inside of it, like a Windows laptop, which, so the Multiverse is all real time effects. Yeah.
See, that's cool, and that's something I understand even a little more, actually, which is weird. But that sort of thing. So it's not like you're running an actual computer with like a Windows or something like that. It's actually, or Linux probably in most cases. It's actually running it all real time, bare as it can be. So there's not as much weight and processing and doing other things other than just
there's no
effect
prioritization of the task. There's only one priority. And that is tone. So that's how that works.
So on the developer platform, so switching over to that a little bit, let me find the way to word this question. What's the barrier to entry in developing your own effects for this platform? So how much expertise do I need to have? Am I going to need to code, or is it a building block scenario?
Yeah. So right now it's you do need to know basic like C++. It's not like there are DSP platforms like for instance like the Shark, which is much more, you need a much higher level of expertise to program. The way Effect Creator is right out of the box, you can build like a working audio bypass volume pedal type thing, so you can immediately get something working. So that's good, step one. But we're thinking a lot about so I guess to answer your question, yeah, you do need to know how to code audio, like basic skills, but you don't have to have a PhD in DSP. We've lowered the bar to entry for getting your own audio effect to work on hardware instead of taking months or years. You can get something working fairly quickly.
Sometimes a developer was able to get something working within a couple of days.
Yeah.
But these are people who know how to code.
Wow.
These are people who have generally built desktop
Yeah.
VSTs before, so that skill set kind of applies, like audio engineering. Yeah. So the programming skills are required.
Yeah.
But not for the player edition. So we spent basically the first year after we launched it focusing on our relationship with developers and growing that, and that was clear by the name of the pedal and everything. So we've had the library grow tremendously, and even come to include some really sophisticated effects like tape simulators and cab IRs now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so we're really proud, and each effect is really fully featured. Going back with the developers, they provide their artwork and they make it look exactly how they want. So you get their plugin view, which is on your computer, so you get to see their artwork. So we try to pack as much of the analog pedal experience into each effect so that it's still as fun as analog pedals. So you have the artwork and the brand and the look that they chose. And even that's where the funky names come in, because we don't want to put that on the front of the box. So that's what Multiverse is a little bit more serious or ubiquitous. But then inside of it, then you have all these crazy, you could have it be a plant powered effect or whatever. Yeah, that's where you could go wild with all the ideas. So that's what we encourage.
Yeah. We've we grew up in the height of the FE1 pedals, where it was peak boutique pedals coming out with a brand, and everyone was using the FE1 chip, and it was all these amazing reverbs and delays, and they were incredible. And at its core, they're all using the same platform, but they're all these separate boxes. So we were thinking what if we could have a few of them all together, and that's the core. All these companies aren't it's different than analog, where you're kind of creating a new take on a circuit design. All these companies are really innovating with a lot of their digital algorithms, and so that's really the core secret sauce that all these companies were making. And we were thinking theoretically, we could have all these algorithms hosted and standardize them so they can all play together on one more multi-effect platform. And so that's kind of how we came to this idea.
That's really cool. It's reminding me, and before listeners think that this is some easy task or was not some monumental effort, because I have so much respect for the work you guys have put into doing this, because I look at a company like Neural DSP, which this is what they do. In a lot of ways, not to pigeonhole y'all or try to categorize you, it feels a similar. Y'all would be in the same circle in the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they've been talking about they're going to bring their VST plugins to the Quad Cortex for 2.5 years now, and they still haven't managed to do it. So supposedly it's close, but listeners, it was supposed to be in November 2023. If I have anyone at Neuro DSP who is a listener of this podcast, I'm not throwing shade. I'm stating facts. I would love for y'all to deliver on that promise. But the idea of bringing this, VST developers into a pedal platform, it's not as easy as just saying, oh, here's a computer to host it on your pedal board.
Yeah.
So
it needs to be performable. So if you want VSTs, then you run VSTs on your computer. But not often are people do it. But you can bring your laptop to the gig. But it's not really the same as a dedicated hardware, and that's why some companies have both. You got some VSTs and some hardware, and because there's a need for the hardware on stage or in the studio or just even for practicing, it's more practical. Flick it on and start jamming.
Yeah, and we also like
Yeah,
came at
exactly.
this from the core vision of the having everything on one platform here. So like this was designed for the ground up for this purpose. So I don't know what Neural's what their intentions were initially when they came out with the Quad Cortex, and then the plugins really took off. But I could definitely see the difficulty of trying to merge those together. So it's no easy feat, but
Yeah, I don't envy them because honestly, their downfall was saying they do it and then realizing, oh, it's not that quite that easy. It takes a little more. It's almost like they're having to redevelop it. Anyway, I don't mean to make it about that, but it's just to illustrate the point that it's not the easiest thing. Everybody, I say everybody, guitar players tend to think, oh, it's just software. It's easy. Just move it over. It's really not. And so to design this platform where people can develop effects and can be hosted by this, I I think this is really really innovative. And I'm not gonna lie, when we first started talking, I was not. I was like, how needed is this? You know what I mean? Just gonna be honest. I had that moment where I was like, is there really a market for, is there a place for this? And then the more I read about it and the more I tried to watch videos on it and the more I've talked to y'all and been in your Discord and listened to the conversations about, oh, we need to do this, and just that I'm not going to try to regurgitate the technical jargon that I have read in the Discord, because I would just get it wrong. It's a lot of gobbledygooks and thingamabobs and doomaflachis and stuff like that, very technical terms. um but the more kind of excited I've gotten about the idea of it. Um, and listeners, y'all know that I'm a Luddite. Y'all know that I'm a guitar that was designed in the 50s into a fuzz or an overdrive pedal into an amp that's based on a design that was designed in the 50s. Like I'm not the most modern player. Um, but I'm getting more and more understanding of how exciting and the possibilities that something like this could bring, because right now, yes, you're probably, without seeing the 3335, the numbers already left my head, thank you ADHD, 35 I think it was, effects that are available, they're probably 80-90% pretty standard guitar player fare. You've got your modulations, your overdrives, your fuzzes, your delays. But the thing about having a platform like this, you're only really limited by your imagination, what you want
Yeah,
to
I think
do with it.
people, that's what gets the most excited about it is the ecosystem, the potential, not only for the effects that will get made, but also being able to then take them and make your own sound designs with it. It could really take on
Yeah.
it could get really deep, but also be really simple.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, we're super proud of it. I mean, but we're very very excited that we got to talk to you about it, like leading up to the launch, this week or
The
Friday.
scope of this project
Yeah,
is massive.
It's taken a long time to get here. Yeah, we really can't understate the development. We have really talented. It goes back years. Starting this out and then getting it into beta testing and then the developer launch.
And this is the moment where we get to like take what we've been working on with the developers and send it out to everybody now. So
Right.
now, cat's out of the bag. Everyone can try the effects that are on the platform and get to use them, get to create crazy presets. We're going to be hosting user-made presets as well that you can just load into the pedal. You don't have to even make your own preset. You can just load it. So that'll be out on launch today. And so we're super excited to see what people do with it. And yes, for Player Edition, you don't need to be a developer. You don't need to be a coding genius to use it. It's you get access to the 35 effects from a variety of developers that we have on the platform now, and the developers that are coming on in the future, and all the effects that they're going to make as well. And you get to take those, build custom pedal boards, do all kinds of pretty crazy stuff. And there's a few new features in the pipeline that are coming out fairly soon that are really really cool.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that I think we need to do better is show it off. We're going to be changing a lot and continuing to release. So it's not all happening sort of at once. But I don't think we could work and
Right.
get everything planned out that far in advance for a small team. So yeah, we're going to continue to have things coming out. That we're excited about. We were going to tease that there's potentially going to be some synthesis that we're going to be able to add to the platform.
I was gonna ask when you
Yeah,
mentioned synth earlier. I was like, oh yeah, because when I was saying like sky's the limit with what you can do, I was sort of alluding to that without trying to allude to it because I'm not a synth person. I do own a couple of synths. In particular, I've got what have I got back here? The Subsequent
yeah,
37, which I love. But when you were talking
yeah.
about the little screens, I was like, yeah, that feels like trying to do things on the Subsequent, even though it's got all these knobs. Y'all, I don't know what 95% of the buttons on
Yeah.
that thing mean. I don't know. I download presets is what
Yeah.
I do because that's the only way I function. So I did want to make sure we make that clear here in the end. So in case you were confused, listeners,
Yeah.
for users, this is super simple. This is very simple. It's the developer side
If
that
you
you
want to
need to
make
have
your
some
own effects and
expertise
be
and
your
some
own
knowledge.
pedal company, like if you want to be your own pedal company,
Yeah.
this is probably the quickest way to get something working on a fully featured pedal.
That's super rad. I love that. I love the opportunities that this is going to open up. Listeners, it's out today. There's some videos you can go check out. There's some stuff you can go. I'm going to try to link as many of them as I can in the comments in the description below or in the show notes, depending on where you're checking this out. Go check it out. There's a bunch of just really, really cool possibilities. And I feel like even though it's launched today, as of this episode releasing, if you're listening to this from the future, first of all, I really hope we're still here. Second of all, you've already seen all this. It's all out there. And the 35 may be very small. There may be 350 effects available on this platform by now. But on launch, there's going to be these great options, and it's just going to grow from there. And I want to ask about the future here as we're in the closing minutes of the regular episode before we get weird over on Patreon.
Yeah.
So, and I realize that you two right now are staring at the finish line of a 5-year race just to launch it to
Feels
the
like
public.
we're staring at the starting
But
line here. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. So, in what ways is this the starting line? Like, what do you envision for Aviate and Multiverse going forward? Are you thinking a whole line like the Helix series where they've got the floor and the LT and are you thinking about bigger platforms? Because really, you've already got such a wide open software
Yes.
side of it, the back end of it, that it feels like opening up the possibilities in hardware is
Well,
what's next on the table.
it's really about the whole multiverse is the whole body of what's possible on the device. So we really are still very early days as far as the number of publishers on the platform, and we could really see incredibly interesting things happen depending on who chooses to publish an effect. It could really just be any brand. Like I see you have a really cool looking amplifier on the 40-watt podcast logo. That could be an effect on Multiverse. So we've really only scratched the surface of some of the earliest developers that have published, but we are really seeking out a lot more conversations. That's a big part of what we've been doing at NAMM. It's a collaborative platform, and we really want to see new brands publish new effects, even if it's a 3-knob overdrive by every single brand. And it should be there, and because it's so, it can
absolutely have it. Y'all should have 35 3-knob
so we really want to
overdrives
achieve
alone
a
on the back.
multiverse that looks like it has many, like a full universe of like, wow, there's many places to go here, different brands, different whole styles of effects, and then potentially other kinds of tools that aren't even just effects, but maybe even more like synthesizers. And then we have plans about improving the power of the hardware and making that more capable when the library gets to a point where, okay, now you need to integrate more high-end, more powerful effects that require certain. But we really want the platform to be continuously compatible. So we could potentially look to do updated versions of the hardware, like way out in the future, maybe a more powerful one, but near term, like we create different multiverse editions, and that's kind of our standard way of releasing hardware. So the editions can really look a whole lot of different ways too, and we might not, the next pedal release might not be exactly the same as the last multiverse edition, even though it's still a multiverse pedal. Yeah, so there's definitely we're laying out the foundation of what this is, but I think, if you know me, I'm going to keep having a lot of ridiculous ideas, and then Ryan's going to continue to rein them in and make it something reasonable.
Biting my tongue.
that your audience or that all or most guitar players would be able to somewhat relate to, jive with it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in terms of near term, Shane alluded to the synthesis. I think that's coming a lot. That's coming pretty soon. So that'll be a very near term thing.
We have the MIDI input that supports that.
Yeah, and beyond that too, like Shane said, more known brands on the platform is bigger brands.
40-watt podcast.
Also,
I don't think I'm going to be coding in C++ anytime soon. I studied it for.
Well, we're looking at ways of having analog brands that don't have coding experience participate on the platform. There's ways of modeling these analog effects that we're starting to pilot now. Also that, and then another thing too is there's plenty of pedal companies out there and other companies that have discontinued pedals or pedals that are vintage that have come out in the past, and for whatever reason, I think especially during COVID and supply chain issues, or just the scarcity and availability of parts as we move into the future, some parts become less available, and there's something to be said too about almost rescuing those discontinued pedals, like especially if they have like a following, like a cult following, and they're not being produced now. Especially if they were digital too to begin with, that's an easier transition for near term. But yeah, looking to maybe like bring back some discontinued pedals would be super cool.
So before we close, because we're right here at the end before we swap over, you just brought up a really good question I have in the idea of salvaging. So in a platform like this, where you're creating the hardware and the ecosystem, hypothetically, it's not a large jump to say people could develop amplifiers as well, and this could be a standalone all-in-one amp sim pedal board theoretically. Now,
Multiverse is a stopbox modeler, so it's designed for effects.
Yeah.
And different
tools
right
now.
Different tools and filters. Right now. We don't have anything on the platform that's like a full-blown amp sim yet, and it's not something that we're really focusing on or planning towards. Just because it's a lot of a different beast once you start getting into amp models. It's way different than just doing effects. So there's some utility items that we've got, like a really cool tone stack that's like a part of an amp. It's kind of like the EQ section with a gain. So those are really nice sounding. So if you like ampless setups, you can pretty much get
or preamp into IR.
Preamp because it runs
too.
IR.
Yeah.
So it's got the tone stack, it's got the IR, but and it's got distortion stages. But we're not really gonna. Yeah, the amps is not the focus. We're not crossing into that realm yet. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. It literally was a thought that I was like, oh, that's possible. And yeah, possible, but it's a maybe down the road, maybe not. I'm not making promises for you. But I think there's so many possibilities, and I appreciate you saying my logo was good. I made that in Canva. That was great. I spent a lot of time putting together to make it look like a Super Reverb. Listeners, if you've ever wondered what my logo is, it's supposed to be a Super Reverb. It's okay. I'm gonna get a pro to do my next logo. I am not a pro. I pay $11 a month to Canva to pretend to be a pro. That's why they call it Canva Pro. Oh, that's so bad. That's
not an ad.
Y'all don't deserve that. Yeah, that was not an ad. Yeah, I wish Canva was paying me money. Canva, where's that sponsorship? So we're about to go over to the Patreon. First of all, thank you guys for coming on the podcast and talking about
Thank
this
you.
and just being good sports about me not knowing what I'm
This
talking
was
about.
amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
So before we leave, obviously Instagram, YouTube, where can everybody find y'all? What are all the things that are going to be in the links below? I just want them to say them out loud so that I have them to go back to.
Yeah, check out the audio effects shop on the website. That's probably the first place to start and get a lot of the video content and see what it's all about.
Yeah, aviateaudio.com, and then we're also Aviate Audio
on Instagram and YouTube.
Yep, YouTube and Instagram. Aviate_audio.
Yeah, at Aviate_audio on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hunt down whoever has the
we'll take it back.
Yeah,
have some talks. Horse heads in the beds. I mean, just hold. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, vegans. That wasn't a very polite thing to say. No, I won't. No horses will.
You know, we would love to do a lot more content. You know, it's really the best way to like stay up to date with what is new on the multiverse.
Yeah, Instagram.
And get some demos. We do demos as much as we can. It's but it's a lot of work, and we're kind of busy building the model. That is about. We're looking to get more demos.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk a whole bunch more about gear because we're gear nerds. We know that. Over on the Patreon episode, we're going to get weird over there. Listeners, thank you so much for hanging out. Going to mention a couple of things. If you are listening on an audio-only platform, awesome. Thank you so much. Please make sure to rate and review the podcast because that helps it grow. That helps other people find it. Believe it or not, they push the higher rated podcasts to people. I can't imagine why. But also, if you are watching on YouTube, you've probably clicked off by now because my metrics show that most of you watch about 30% of videos. That's okay too. Thank you for watching. If you did watch all the way to the end, I appreciate it. If you watched this far into this video and you're not already subscribed, all 0.05% of you, please click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, leave a comment, share it with your friends. If you want to financially support, go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast. All those things. I don't mention the rate and review thing enough, though. So you listeners that have made it all the way to the end, which Spotify tells me most of you make it all the way to the end, which is great. Make sure to rate and review the podcast on your platform. That helps a bunch. In the meantime, we're moving over to Patreon. Y'all remember to be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.